Christmas, you guys. Happy holidays. And welcome back to another episode of Lawyered Up. I'm your host, Jared Moore, and for the record, I am not a lawyer. Lawyered Up is a program where we look at court filings in the Creek Nation District Court and from all over the place, and we try to make sense out of the legalese, etc., for us regular Joes. So if you guys have been following our previous coverage from last time, we are going to have an update for the Grayson Kennedy case. So just to put everything in a nutshell, if you haven't been watching our previous coverage, in June, I believe, the Creek Nation Supreme Court ordered that the MCN Citizenship Board was supposed to give Grayson and Kennedy their citizenship. They did not, and then there was a filing for contempt made by Grayson and Kennedy's lawyers, at which point the MCN Supreme Court said, we're not going to hold them in contempt, but because they haven't had enough time to change the code and stuff that they need to change. So eventually they ordered that the Citizenship Board needs to start turning in progress reports. And what we have today is the first of those progress reports. So without further ado, let's jump right in and we will take a look at the first progress report. Let's see. Let me pop this up for you guys. So as usual, we are on the Supreme Court's website, and the link to this is in the description of the video. We're going to go to final opinions because the opinion's already been issued in this case. There it is, Grayson Kennedy case. When we scroll down here, you guys will see Appellate Citizenship Board's first monthly status report down here at the bottom. Let's click it. I'm going to make it bigger for everybody. So if you guys remember from prior coverage, let me come back really quick. When the Supreme Court issued its order saying you need to do these status reports, it listed a bunch of things that it wanted to see in the reports. So with the Citizenship Board's first report, you'll see here that they will have the requirement that the Supreme Court asked of them, and then their response to that's bolded. So that's the format. Let's take a look here. So number one is the response from the Citizenship Board says, Appellate Citizenship Board is not the principal chief and does not have access to the requested information. In an effort to provide this information to the court, Appellate requested this information be provided by the principal chief, Exhibit 1, letter of 11, blah, 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 blah. The response of principal chief is attached Exhibit 2. Let's keep on going down. The next response says, Appellate Citizenship Board is not the principal chief and does not have access to the requested information. You can see there's a pattern forming here. Let's keep going. The National Council, this also lists the National Council, did not provide a response as of this date. Let's keep going. So this one says the proposed code amendments to Title VII prepared by counsel for the executive branch and the Attorney General's office are attached, Exhibit 4. Those proposed Title VII amendments were transmitted to the Citizenship Board for comment on October 24th, 2025. The Citizenship Board transmitted their comments to the executive branch and Attorney General's office on October 29th, 2025. Appellate Citizenship Board is unaware of what action was taken thereafter by the Principal Chief or National Council. In an effort to provide a complete response, the Board requested this information from Principal Chief and National Council. Chief Hill's response is attached to Exhibit 2. So you guys can see already that basically what the Citizenship Board is saying is, we received proposed amendments from the Attorney General's office and from Chief's office's lawyer, right? And we've signed off on those and sent them back, but we haven't seen anything that's come out of that. And we've tried to get the National Council to make a comment on any of this or give us any information. They haven't responded. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of these responses, but that's what we're going to see on all of these responses right now. And then we'll go through Chief's response to the Citizenship Board when they ask for the information, and we'll see what the letter they sent to the National Council. So let's keep moving. So response, the Citizenship Board has prepared the attached proposed updated administrative policy changes in response to the proposed code amendments. Most of the changes are updates to the policy in general. The changes made specifically to comply with Supreme Court's ruling are found in sections 8. So, and then it goes on to talk about the changes for the administrative code and things that need to be changed. They state here that work requires action by the National Council and Principal Chief. They're talking about passing code. Until code amendments are passed, the Citizenship Board is unable to promulgate new rules because those rules may not be consistent with this title, and so forth. Let's keep going. Response. The following policy questions were suggested by the board in its response. How are blood citizens versus freedmen citizens to be distinguished? Are they to be distinguished? What are the cards to say? What criteria guides the Citizenship Board in determining tribal membership pursuant to the Treaty of 1866? Those issues have all been addressed in the proposed code amendments, comments, and proposed administrative procedures, the Principal Chief and National Council, and so on and so forth. You get the idea there. Citizenship Board is unaware of any additional questions to be addressed. I'm going to keep rolling. Citizenship Board can only respond to this question with regard to its rulemaking authority. The Board believes that it can make any necessary procedural amendments given the proper notice of meetings, publish said notice in the newspaper, conduct the meetings, approve the procedural amendments, publish a certified copy of the procedural amendments, and file the same with the National Council Secretary. The court and clerk, within 60 to 90 days of enactment of the necessary code amendments to Title VII, necessary proposed policy amendments can be created and approved by the board for a meeting agenda within 14 days. However, the Mvskoke News, and that's not spelled correctly, it should be Mvskoke, as you guys know, is only published twice per month, so there are some inherent delay involved in the two required publications. The first to give adequate notice of the meetings to adopt the policy changes, and the second to publish a certified copy of the approved rules. That would likely take 30 to 45 days, and so on and so forth. And then they go down to the thing. Okay, so this is the bottom of their response. So that's the status report. Now, I'm going to go through the exhibits so you guys can see what Chief Hill's office said to the Citizenship Board when they asked for information about what code's going to be proposed and when it's going to be proposed and all of those things. So let's take a look at those exhibits. So here we have, this is the letter that the Citizenship Board sent to Chief Hill asking him for the information, right? And then saying we can answer some of these questions, but we need these specific things. I'm going to skip over that because we kind of read that stuff already. This is the response from the executive office to that request. Chairman Nichols, I received your letter seeking certain information from my office that may be used to assist you and the Citizenship Board with providing a response to the MCN Supreme Court's order requiring a monthly status report in the Citizenship Board versus Grayson et al. Case. As a general matter, I, as Principal Chief, do not want to be uncooperative and do not want to impede the ability of the Board to provide an appropriate response to the Court as the Board sees fit. However, I am not a party in the Grayson case, and, as a matter of separation of powers, the information about the implementation of the constitutional duties and responsibilities of the executive branch departments and officials, including communication with the National Council on proposed legislation, falls under the exclusive province of the Principal Chief and is not generally subject to disclosure except as required by nation law. I want to pause here just for a second. This part, I don't understand because the chief is talking about separation of powers here, but the people who are asking for the information is the Citizenship Board. It's, like they're saying, hey, could you give us this information? And it's information about proposed changes to code. It's not secret stuff. It's stuff that we should see going through the National Council and that the chief should sign and everything to comply with the order, right? So that's where I'm a little confused on that, because as chief mentions, he's not a party to the case. And so it's not the Supreme Court that's asking for any information. The Citizenship Board's asking for the information so they can comply. But anyway, I'm going to keep going with his letter here. Notwithstanding those objections, I can provide the following general responses. 1. Executive departments continue to review internal policies and procedures to determine the amendments that may be necessary. However, it is difficult for departments to be able to modify internal policies and procedures adequately and completely until final amendments to Title VII have been approved by the National Council and enacted into law. 2. Executive branch officials and legal counsel continue to have discussions with the Office of the Attorney General on proposed amendments to Title VII. These proposed amendments were shared with the board, and I have received some initial comments from the board. I have also updated the Speaker of the National Council on the status of these proposed amendments, and we have been discussing the need for scheduling a possible joint committee meeting between Health, Education, and Welfare Committee and the Business, Finance, and Justice Committee to consider the proposed Title VII amendments. I am not involved in the decision-making process of scheduling committee meetings of the National Council, so I cannot provide information on when any meeting will be set to consider proposed code amendments. So I wanted to point out a couple of things here with this too. While what Chief is saying here is technically true, Chief's office can call I can't remember if it's emergency session or a special session. The Chief's office can call a special session, or it's either special or emergency. That he can call a special session or emergency session to vote on legislation, and that whether he needs to work with the council on code through these committees is another thing altogether. I guess he could. While we're talking about the Hugh committee and the BFJ committee, right? Let's go take a look and see if there's anything in those committees, because the Hugh and I think the BFJ were today, and we can look at the agendas. So let's do that really quickly. Let me pop this up for you guys. Boop. Here we are on the National Council's website. We're going to go to the agendas. We're going to go to 2025. And then as you guys can see here, we just had the LNC and Hugh. Sorry, BFJ is not till December 11th, but we can look at the agenda. What we're looking for is anything related to code that's going to affect citizenship or anything like that. So all we have on the Hugh committee is tribal resolution that is applying grant funds, and then another one. Both of these are grant funds, so that's not what we're looking for. Let's go to BF and J. What's on there? We've got grant, Justice Department grant. We've got changes to the Secretary of Commerce, Chapter 11, security on the tribal complex, tax assistance, internal revenue, grant funds, and then appropriations to the National Council. So right there, we do not have anything coming up to this month's council committee meetings in the Hugh or the BFJ that's going to pertain to this at all. The next exhibits here with this filing is the letter that the Citizenship Board sent to Speaker Hicks, which they did not receive a response to. And then there is a list here of the proposed amendments to Title VII that the Citizenship Board has signed off on, right? I'm not going to go through all of those amendments because it'd be easier if we just look at what goes through a committee when it goes through a committee. We don't know if it's going to be changed because just like the Citizenship Board said in the status report, we've looked at this code and we've sent it back to Chief's office and with our proposed changes and stuff, but we haven't seen any legislation go through any committees, and that's what it'll need to do. It'll have to go through a committee, and then it'll go through full council, and then Chief will sign it before it goes on. So I'd rather go through the changes to code when we have them finalized. the changes that are put here in this particular code as an exhibit could be radically different, right? Like, for instance, I did want to point out one thing. Hold on, sorry, I did that too fast. When the Supreme Court ordered Grayson and Kennedy to get citizenship, the fundamental thing that the Supreme Court ordered is that the phrase "by blood" is void ab initio, right? And void ab initio just means that it can't be heard in any court or anything because it doesn't exist legally, right? It's not a legal term, basically. So at a minimum, amendments to code, you would assume, would need to remove all of those by blood phrasings from all the code. So let's take a look at the code that is attached here that was approved by citizenship. And you can see there are instances. For instance, let's keep going down here. The underlined parts are the added parts. You can see that here's by blood right here. Mvskoke Creek Indian by blood is a phrase that's in here. Mvskoke Creek Indian by blood. That by blood, I'm pretty sure they need to remove that. So I just point that out to illustrate that there's probably going to be changes to these proposed changes and so on and so forth. Let me take a look at the chat here. TLDR, tell me about it. Yes. We should be seeing probably some constitutional amendments, maybe, possibly. I think that pretty much covers it. We do not have here, to go back, there is not another order for the next monthly status report. So we don't have anything from the Supreme Court yet that says when January's status report is going to be what the deadline for that's going to be. They might roll it over on the 5th every time, I don't know. And then we'll see if Grayson and Kennedy make any more filings for contempt based on this, because there's not a lot of meat and potatoes in that status report. Basically the Citizenship Board is saying, hey, we're trying to do it, but Chief's not working with us and the council isn't, they're not giving us, or we don't know, we're not getting any information from them on the process. For you guys out there that are wondering when any of this is going to happen, just like what was pointed out in the status report there, this stuff will need to be published in the newspaper for public hearing, and then when the regulations are changed, it'll need to be published, and different things like that. So you'll see it in the newspaper, and also I'll be live streaming anytime we get anything new coming through. And with that being said, Mado, Hadom, Chihichatlis, we will see you guys in the future. You guys have a great Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll see you again. Mado.